Hey, welcome to Beyond the Storm with Selena. I'm your host. I am excited about this week's guest. We have Jennifer Jackson here. Jennifer comes with a lot of lived experience through trauma and addiction. Jennifer is also a social worker for a local police department. She's a crisis response person that shows up on the scene whenever somebody is in a mental health crisis. She works alongside the local police department in the community that she serves. So I'm really super excited to hear Jennifer's story today. In all fairness, in transparency, Jennifer and I have a history. We know each other personally, and I'm going to let her share a little bit of that story. So today, thank you for being here, Jennifer.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So let's go back and let's talk about your childhood. Let's start with, what made you who you are today?
So my mom was an addict, and she had several mental health diagnoses, which fueled her addiction a little bit, I believe. She liked her alcohol and pills and marijuana and some cocaine. I don't know that she touched opiates, but I could be wrong. She did a lot. But anyways, she did struggle with her mental health. She eventually succumbed to a suicide attempt. She took a bunch of pills and drank it with alcohol, and she was found deceased with a letter.
Okay, but let's go back to what that was like as a child in that environment when you were visiting, because I, share that part of that story.
Well, living in it before, when my mom and dad were married, my dad traveled, so he wasn't home during the week. So I would be home with her, and he'd be gone. And she was very off the chain, I guess would be the best way to explain it. She was up and down, and she would drink to mellow or smoke marijuana to mellow. She was very abusive to me. My sister is much younger than me, so she has a different viewpoint on that. She didn't really see a lot of that. And then my parents ultimately divorced, and then we had visits occasionally, not very often. My dad got sole custody, so they were very limited visits. He protected us very well with that. But when we'd had visits, she got us in a drug bust. We were at, some repair shop, and I noticed that people were surrounding the building. She didn't, I did. And the police busted in. She was arrested. I had to call my dad from a police car, and those days weren't cell phones, so it was over the police radio. Called my dad to come get him. I think we were in Joplin. You might remember that.
I do. I remember that. So one of the things that I think I experienced as an outsider looking in at that is, especially during those years, mental health diagnoses weren't as common. And again, it was stigmatized. So when you're dealing with a divorce and custody, that probably was something she really didn't want to share, would be my guess. And it was probably self-medicated in order to maintain it, like you described. I know firsthand that there was a scenario where we ended up having to go get you, or your dad actually went and picked you up. And how did that change the relationship between you and your mother?
I didn't like my mom. I didn't like my mom when my parents got a divorce. We didn't have a really good relationship. She took everything out on me. I didn't like her more when my dad had to come get her when we were in the drug bust. I thought that she put us in several situations that she didn't need to put us in, and drinking and driving. And I was old enough, unlike my sister, to see the things. I don't believe she got her diagnosis until after that. So I don't even think we knew she had mental health. We just knew she had addiction problems. I didn't like her. I loved her because she was my mom. I sure didn't like her. I struggled with her a lot. And in hindsight, I think I struggled a lot with her mental health. It helps me today to explain. She had bipolar. It helps me to explain bipolar. Bipolar is often like a roller coaster without meds. People are extreme highs and extreme lows, and those medications kind of help stabilize that and take the extreme highs and extreme lows out. So dealing with her I say that loosely because I dealt with her. I didn't live with her.
And you dealt with her as a child.
It kind of helps me because when she was medicated, I tolerated her. I actually liked her. And so it helps me in my role today to explain, like, hey, this is how medications can help. And when they get the right ones, and there's so many testings today to help people get the right medications. So that's kind of how my past helps me today with people, because I don't have bipolar. I'm not an addict, so I can't personally relate with individuals, but I can relate because I've lived it.
Correct. I can see how that's very beneficial for your position that you work in today. So let's talk about as you got a little older, and how that relationship played it out, the path that you traveled during those years of basically your career, but also as developing as the person you are today. How did that relationship transpire? Some of those lived experiences get you to where you are today?
They all define me in certain different ways of life. Obviously, they define my career. They help me. I started in children's division. As a child that was abused, it obviously helped me identify with the children that were being abused and be able to talk to them and relate to them. You never share too much when you're talking with somebody, but you share enough to say, hey, I do get it. I do understand. Because sometimes children and addicts themselves, they say you don't understand. And they're right. I don't understand. I don't know what it's like to have that monkey on the back. I don't. But I've lived it. I've watched it. So I can relate a little bit to them and try to understand and help bridge them. The abused children, obviously I lived that. I can understand that a tad better, but it defined me. It helped me. It helps me relate. It helps build. It helps me build rapport faster with individuals. Like I said, I'm in the field. I don't have time to sit down like this and have a long conversation and dive into everything with them. I don't have time to peel layers. I have time to...
You have to build credit with them really quick.
Fast. Like within 30 minutes sometimes, not even 30 minutes, within 15. I got to get in and like, hey, let's what's going on today, right now? Not what happened 10 years ago, like what's now? Like, what can I help you with now? And I'm so used to crisis. With my mom, with my siblings, just within life, that I am able to stay calm in a crisis. I don't get all up in a tizzy about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that helps too, and that's kind of defined me. My mom was full of crisis all the time, and if I got worked up about it all the time, I would probably be a mess today.
Right. I can understand that. And as we dive into some of these later years, you have a history with Stephen, my son.
I do.
Do we want to dive into that?
Yeah, that kid. He taught me a lot. He helped me a lot. Him and I, we were very opposite. We've always been very opposite. When he came into my life, we were opposite. Growing up, we were opposite. But that's how we balanced, I think. I think we balanced because we were opposite. There was points and times where it was a challenge because we were so opposite. I was a probation and parole officer. He was coming out of the DOC.
Department of Corrections.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I couldn't associate with him. He didn't want to associate with me. There was reasons behind that.
There was a big conflict between it. And your safety and his safety. There was a lot of conversation in between our families about how do we navigate this? How do we protect you? How does he maneuver around DOC without anybody knowing that you were a probation and parole officer, and how it would have affected him in those environments?
Yeah. And I respected him for that, and he respected me for that. But and I was a probation and parole officer for a short amount of time. That really wasn't my that wasn't for me. I was meant to be a social worker. I am not one to build rapport and sanction for somebody. So that wasn't my jam. But
let's go back and dig into that, because I like what you just said. Build rapport and then sanction. Explain what that means, because people who have never been affected by that wouldn't understand what that means.
Well, in probation and parole, they want probation officers to build rapport with their clients, which naturally you should. You should build some type of rapport. And then when you're doing that, your client starts to trust you and they start talking to you. And sometimes they talk a little too much and you have to be like, stop talking, bro. Stop. Because they're telling on themselves and you have to turn around and sanction them. Write them up is what I mean. Violate them. And that wasn't for me. Like, I feel if I built a rapport and they were telling on themselves, I don't feel I should have to write them up from that. They're telling on themselves. So they're telling on themselves to get help, not for me to write them up and punish them. So I battled with probation and parole with that because I didn't want to write people up. And I got in trouble for not writing people up for telling on themselves when that was the whole point of them building rapport with me. So that wasn't the role for me, so I left.
So my guess is that you seen that as an opportunity to help them, not jam them up.
Right, 100%.
Because our system is full of kids and people, adults that have gone to prison. When they didn't need the prison, they needed the help.
Yeah,
and that's kind of a conflict for somebody sitting in that position.
It's a huge conflict, but the model that they design is they want you to build rapport and help them and avoid that, but yet write them up when they tell you stuff. My motto had always been with my clients is tell me before I find out. Let's get ahead of it. So if I have that motto with them, so they're telling me, so let's work ahead of it before I find out. Mm-hmm. Then I feel that we're jumping ahead of it instead of playing catch up. Like, oh, you got arrested. Now I gotta write you up because you got arrested.
Yeah, I'm sure that was probably difficult for you. That was very conflicting for you. Have you ever had, and I know I have to be careful here, and you have to be very careful with what we're going to say here. Have you ever come across somebody that you've worked with that later down the road, maybe they're not on paper, you're not in that position? Have you ever had people that have either been upset with you for how you handled them or thankful for how you handled? Have you had any encounters
I've had both.
Okay.
I mean, I've had both. Probation and parole. When I left probation and parole, a lot of my people were super sad that I was leaving. They said, "Oh, I've never had an officer quite like you," and I recognized that I was different because I related to them. Some of them I see out and about now, and still talk to them, and they thank me for the time that I had them. And thank me, like some of them say, "Hey, I'm off paper. I did it. Like you helped me get through." There was a guy that I had to send back because of what he did. And he got out and I seen him. I crossed paths with him on the street and I didn't cross paths. I crossed paths with him in jail. And I said, "Oh, how are you?" Awkward. And he said, "Well, I messed up." And I seen him in my new role. And he goes, "I really wish you were my probation officer again." And I said, "Well, I'm not in that role again, but I'm in this role. What can I do to help you in this role?" Mm-hmm. And he allowed me to help him in this role, obviously.
Oh, great.
So I was able to, so that's how sometimes the roles can kind of cross. And he was very thankful that I got him help in this new role. And I still kind of check in on him. I don't keep my individuals, and I'm not a case manager, so I don't hold on to individuals, but I can check up on him when he comes to court and stuff and say, "Hey, you doing good? Is that working out?"
Well, it's that extra added layer of support that doesn't come with a title. It's, listen, we cross paths, and I care as a human. Are you okay?
Yeah.
And there's no job title that prevents you from doing that.
Yeah. Children's division, I had a girl who, she did not like me, and I had to take her kids, and I get it. Taking kids is rough. It was not something I like to do either. And I was meeting somebody, and I was in probation and parole, and I saw her, and I was like, oh, this is either going to go one or two ways. She's either going to make a scene, and it's going to be rough for me to do my job here, or she's just going to ignore me, and we're going to be all right. Okay, I got to
back up here. You were in another position, mm-hmm. fulfilling that role, mm-hmm. and you came across somebody that you encountered in a different role, working as a family caseworker at that time, where you had taken her kids prior, and now you've ran into her again.
She has her kids back.
Okay.
We're at a park. So it's a public park. She has her kids back. I could see that her kids, they had obviously grown because I barely recognized them, but I recognized her more than I did her kids, as they had significantly grown. And so I was like, oh, but I couldn't change the location because the gentleman I was meeting didn't have a phone. So I had set the location.
You were stuck.
Yeah, I was like, oh. And so I was sitting there, I was waiting, and she came up to me and she confirmed who I was. And I said yes. And I was like, here we go. And I am in full vest, armed, because I was probation officer. We're armed, vest, and all that stuff. And I was like, well, I'm safe. And she confirmed who I was. I said, yes, it's me. And she, we chatted about my new position. And she goes, at the end of it, she goes, I really want to thank you. You saved my life. You saved my kids' life. We are forever grateful for you.
Wow.
She was in drug court. So she was an addict. And she said, I didn't want to believe you that I had a problem. And I didn't want to believe the courts that I had a problem. I didn't want to believe anyone. But I know now that I had a problem, and my kids are forever better because I am clean and sober. And she gave her clean date, and she gave me a lot of updates. But
how'd that make you feel?
Made me feel really good. And I knew she had it in her. Even then, I knew she had it in her. She just was stuck in her addiction.
In a system where there is so much cracks and people fall through them, and we've seen that, you've seen it, we've experienced it personally, there has to be a little piece of you that feels like there is a path when you get to have those conversations. There is an opportunity for something more than falling in that crack. So, I'm sure that you get those moments when they come and speak to you and say, look what I accomplished. Sometimes the system doesn't set them up that way. They have to scratch and crawl to get through this system. So, I appreciate you as somebody who's walked on the legal side of it or on the system side of it, and you can recognize that, because a lot of times people are so jaded working in those environments, and I'm sure you probably encounter some of that as well. It's hard to work that and see so many people that do fall through the crack or fall because they are not willing to put the work in. So being able to see a successful story has to make you feel good.
It does. It really does. And it makes up for the ones that are the ones that give up or the addiction wins. I've seen that the addiction wins, or you see them succeed and they get their kids back, and then they fall back into old habits, and then the ultimate addiction wins. And I've lost a few clients, and those are rough. You watch them succeed and, do so good, and then something happened, and then the addiction took over again, and it won that time.
Yeah, and I know you've personally had some encounters that in your own personal life where that's happened. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, Stephen's one of them. Stephen's one of them. I've had, a couple of friends go through some addiction problems, and my ex-husband being one of them, he passed away last year due to his addiction, and my that was pretty rough. And my kids,
you were newly divorced. It wasn't like you had a lot of years.
No, we were pretty.
You guys were still working through, the process of how do you manage kids, co-parenting.
Yeah, we were still figuring that out, and we divorced because of his addiction. There were some other things there, but his addiction was the main thing, and he had went to treatment, and he did really well there for a minute, and then he returned to drinking and tried to hide it. I don't know why he thought he was hiding it from me, but he wasn't doing very well at it. And anyways, I found him, and then
Let's talk about the day you found him and how that transpired.
So he has multiple kids, and I have a good relationship with the other children's mom. And she went down there and she said, "Hey, his front door is open, and he's not coming to the door. Can you come down?" I said, "Absolutely." So we went down there, and sure enough, his door was open. And so I said we should call the police. We should not enter his house.
Because you would know that.
Yeah. So we should not go in there. So we waited on the police, and and so I'm going to skip all that part of talking to the police. And so we go in there. I led the way, and we went through the house, and I found him deceased, and it was breathtaking. I've seen several dead bodies in the course of my current job, but seeing someone you truly love, dead on a bathroom floor,
It's very traumatic.
it takes your breath away. And knowing that I have to tell my kids that their dad is gone, and it was very breathtaking. It's very hard. Of course, in that moment, I held it all together, answered all the questions, did all the formalities while we were there with the officers and the firefighters and the ME, the medical examiner's office. I held it all the way together until they carried him out. And then I hugged him one last time. And that's when I completely broke down. And I had to drive 20 minutes home. And I had told my son had called me because he has my location. And anyone with children know that your kids track your location.
And he was probably trying to figure out why were you at his dad's house.
Yeah. He was. And in fact, he called. He knew where I was at. He made a statement. I don't want to repeat it. That's between him and I. But he made a statement. And I think that statement forever haunts him. And so I had to tell him. He knew. He wouldn't take, "Hey, I'll be home in a little bit. I'll tell you what's going on." He wouldn't take it. I had to tell him over the phone, and then I had to call my dad and say, "Go to my house.
Him.
Go be with my." And my dad's like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" I go, "I don't know. Sit there."
Right. Make sure he's not by himself.
Yeah, just sit there. And so and then I had to go home, and I had to go. My daughter was at her friend's house, and that was gut-wrenching as a parent to tell your children that their dad had died, and they both knew. They both knew, and just a little foreshadowing. I hope my daughter makes it onto your show because she can really tell from her perspective how it felt because she is real young to lose her parent to an addiction.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll figure out how we're going to make that happen too, because we want to be very respectful and very cautious in dealing with a minor who's had a tragedy, and how do we navigate having her sit down in a healthy way. So we'll work on that.
She's real animated about it, and she was real animated with her dad. She was more animated than I was with my mom. Well,
it was a different age and time too, right? Like our youth, we've taught them, we've encouraged them all to express themselves, where our my age range and your age range, we were told basically we're to be seen and not heard. It's a different time period. So we've learned that we encourage our children to talk. They don't carry the trauma. They are able to work through it. So I'm glad that she has a safe place to be able to express herself openly, for sure. So do you want to talk a little bit about how you went through those years to help support Stephen, and how your career path, his involvement with going in and out of the Department of Corrections? Do you want to talk a little bit about how that relationship changed as your career path changed?
I think a lot of my support came through you. I think we spent a ton of time on the phone. Ton of phone calls.
Well, you knew him. You knew him as a child.
Yeah.
You knew him, that you knew Stephen beyond his struggle.
Yeah. I loved him before my career. Well, I think I was in children's division, so I think I was on the journey. I hated writing letters. I am not very good at it. And he hated typed letters. And so we, instead of me, because he wouldn't let me type a letter to him, I'm like, bro, it's so much faster if I could just type it up. He's like, it's not. What did he tell me? It doesn't mean as much. Like, okay. Wrote a story back and forth. I've been looking, and it's somewhere in my house, but you want to talk about differences, that story will tell you differences. I wrote a part, and then he would respond and write another part, and we were so different, and you could tell by that story. I think we wrote, I don't know, like 4 chapters of a book, if you will, of that story. But you could so tell the difference in mindset that we had. And for a while, we lived the same life, but yet did we?
Well, it just goes to show, and I don't know that we've really explained this well enough to our audience. Jennifer and Stephen were step siblings for a period of time. And it just goes to show children can grow up or be in the same household and still be completely different. They can have the same life experiences and one be traumatized by something while the other one handles it well and moves forward. So, looking at the path that you chose and the path that he chose, I'm sure there's a psychology book out there somewhere that explains what that is. But as the family member sitting and watching that, it was really hard to understand how can these two people have spent this amount of time together and have such different outcomes in their life. And, the crazy thing is watching the two of you navigate through life, there was still a love and respect for each other that defied the boundaries of what the directions that your lives went.
I look at it like Stephen was a free spirit.
Yep.
Very free. Ironically, didn't like to be confined by the norms. Mm-hmm. And I followed the norms. I tried to stay within the society of norms, and I didn't mind structure. I just kind of went with it and followed it. He did not. And he liked to do his own thing. And he did that as a kid, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we differed. I think that was the biggest difference, is I tried to stay within society's boundaries, and he
said the hell with boundaries.
Yeah,
right.
He did his own thing.
For sure. So as you got older and you still had your mother in your life, do we want to talk about how... towards the end of her life, how that played out and the impact it had on you?
Well, she lived in another state, so we just had phone calls. Back in the day, you had to pay for them. They weren't free. So she would call and she would ramble on, and sometimes I would engage, and I'll be honest, sometimes I didn't. It depends what part of her manic state she was in. Or she would curse me out, and then I'm like, I'm not going to pay for you to curse me out, and just hang up. And I would go up and see her, and I was just telling Jacob this that's Jacob's my son. I remember we were driving up, and I remember I used to be so excited to go to Cleveland to see her, and then within 5 minutes, I'd be like, why was I so excited? I'm over it. I went up to see her because I was pregnant with my very first son, and she threw a baby shower for me, and I went to see her, and she was supposed to come back with me. She was supposed to help me prepare a room and set up for the baby because I was 7 months pregnant, and she didn't come back. She made up every excuse that she couldn't come back, and then we got in this huge argument, and I loaded up all my things. I was leaving anyway, so it wasn't like I got in an argument and left abruptly. I was leaving anyways. I loaded up all my things. I asked her one more time if she wanted to come. She said nope. She was going to go with her friend over the road and make some extra money, and that she would come later. And so I loaded up all my things. I drove. I remember stopping somewhere along the way from Cleveland to Kansas City. I called her. We got another argument. The last words I spoke to her were a lot of curse words. But I said, "See you later. Love you. Bye." Click. Hung up the phone. Because again, I'm not going to pay to yell at somebody or get yelled at. And those were my last words. I came back. It was some days. She technically died on October 31st, but she wasn't found until November 5th. And she had planned that very well. She had told some people she was down with me. She had told some people that she was with her friend over the road. She had told other people she was here or there, and everywhere. She had planned it very well. It wasn't until my grandmother was like, "This is weird. I can't get a hold of her at all. She hasn't checked in at all. And she's not with me," and she's, and she was found in her home, deceased and decomposed. It was pretty bad. So I was really mad at her. I was pregnant. Like, how selfish can you be?
Yeah. And how did I know you have a younger sister, and there's some differences between the relationships that you had. Did that impact the two of you? How your interpretation of what happened versus hers?
Well, we didn't tell my sister at first that she completed suicide. We told her it was medical, I believe. On her death certificate, it was written heart failure. We just maybe left out the part of the by overdose. Mm-hmm. We didn't tell her initially. She knows now, later in life. She was mad at us when she found out, but we didn't tell her. We thought it was a protection because it was still a stigma.
Yeah, well, and it's a hard thing as a child to probably comprehend. How old was Jessica when her mother passed?
15.
Yeah, that's a real critical time in a young lady's life. That I probably would have done the same thing. Because you want her to thrive, you want her to move forward, you don't want her to get hung up in internalizing, some of those details. So, as you have stepped into your career path and the different aspects of what you've done, children's services, parole and probation, and now you are tell me again your title. Co-responder. Tell me a little bit about what a co-responder does. Tell me a day in the life of a co-responder. What do you do working with the police department and the impact you may be making on people?
So I ride with officers in the patrol car. I do wear a vest. It's a different color than theirs, and it says co-responder. Mine's a powder blue. But I respond on mental health calls, domestic violence calls, OD calls, non-breather calls, all non-breather calls, any call, really. I am on. If I'm in the car, I'm on it. Obviously, I get called to the mental health ones, the OD calls, juvenile runaway calls. Those are priority ones that I'm on. I also do detention assessments. If someone's arrested and they're in a mental health crisis in the detention, we go in and do the assessment. Sometimes, we obviously can keep people safe in a cell, right? And we can put them on suicide watch. But if they're in a psychosis and they are banging their head on the wall and putting them in the chair is only escalating it, we can complete affidavits, and sometimes we can get them released and to get them to the hospital. Or we get them to the hospital and we just have the criminal charges. They're just on a police hold while they're getting the mental health help, instead of just keeping them in the cell and making it worse. Mm-hmm. That's what that has really started to improve. There is getting that mental health help there, especially domestic violence calls. we don't want to minimize the victims, but also if the person is in a mental health crisis and that is what's causing the violence, putting them in a cell is not going to help them. Getting them the mental health help does. We also have to have the victim's agreement to that because we don't want to, disregard the victim, if you will, in that domestic violence.
Right. So do you see this as a positive impact to answering the mental health crisis and being able to balance what is best for the community as well? I mean, do you feel like there's room that these protocols are in place that are going to enhance policing in communities? It's
already showing. We already have statistics in place. I don't have them all memorized, but we lower the number of calls for the frequent flyers, if you will, like the individuals that call over and over, because I'm able to get in there and get services and they're able to get connected. So they're just not calling over and over. Or if they do call, they know that I'm there and I'm able to do that buffer and they don't have that scariness of the police. We're able to assist. Obviously the police are going to be with me because they're there for my protection, and a scene is only as safe it is in that moment. But we have the numbers to where it's lowering that call, and the city I work in is very in support of that, and they're calling and asking for the co-responders to come on scene. And
let's just say that for a second. They are actually engaging, calling you to come in and assist on the scene.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, as a mother who's had a son with mental health crisis at most every encounter with law enforcement, that is a huge impact to hear that.
Yeah. We also are expanding our program. We're in the baby infant stages of expanding it, but we're expanding it over to our fire department. So we are now starting to assist the fire department as well as the police. So we're doing those wraparounds. So on those overdose calls, sometimes you have to get those people to the hospital. I can't really do much when you are not awake. Mm-hmm. And they need to go to the hospital for the medical part. But we have a community paramedic, and they have all that information right when they get them to the hospital. So the community paramedic and the co-responder will then follow up with them. We'll get them linked with Epic. We'll get them some Narcan. We'll meet them where they're at, wherever you're at in your phase of use. We'll get you where you're at. If you want to go, we follow up with you and you want to get clean today, we'll get you through Safe Passage, and we'll get you into treatment today.
Let's talk about Safe Passage. I am glad you segued to there. I interrupted you, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about Safe Passage, because I tell everybody, locally in my community, I tell everybody about Safe Passage.
So Safe Passage is through the Lee Summit Police Department. They're the only one in the metro right now that have it. I know some other police departments are working on it. It's through the opiate funds. You can come in 24/7, and you can walk into the lobby, say you want Safe Passage. An officer will come up. If a co-responder's on duty, they'll come up with the officer. They'll get you, they'll talk to you. It has to be voluntary. So as much as mamas love their babies and they want them to get treatment, you cannot put your baby in treatment. They have to want to go, and you have to be 18 and older. We will take all drugs and paraphernalia and dispose of them as an amnesty. You won't get charged with it. We'll just get rid of it. They will run you for warrants. If you have warrants, we can typically work with the agencies and get those set aside for you to go to treatment. They take you straight away. If you have insurance, we'll contact. We have a person that we run all the insurance through, and you typically go out of state for those, but we have a crisis center you'll sit with until your airline is ready, because you'll fly out. It's to the fancy places. And then if you don't have insurance, that doesn't matter. They'll get you to either Heartland or what other local community.
Do they have multiple agencies that are working with you on this, as far as facilities for treatment?
We only have one right now that guarantees the bed, but multiple agencies, they're doing a realignment of it now. So multiple agencies have put beds in. There's also been some bids for sober living. So after you're out of treatment, instead of, you're out of treatment, now you got to go back home. and we're putting you right back where your playground is. We have some bids in for sober living we can get that started, pay your first 30 days as part of the Safe Passage. That's not there yet, but it's being bidded.
So how have you seen that play out now that you've been involved in this, and you probably have assisted getting people into treatment, and you've been there long enough now to see the outcome of that? What are you seeing?
I see it's about 50-50. But, not everyone is successful on their first go round.
True.
I see the most successful in people that can get into that sober living and have that supported living environment after. The ones that have insurance, they sometimes just don't return to Kansas City, which is great.
So you don't get to see the statistics of how that works.
They typically stay where they're at, and that's great. And we are only authorized to get the updates for so long. So we know that they're still in the program for that long. Mm-hmm. And they're doing well. But 50-50 here. I think I like the revamp, and I like where we're going and offering the sober living. Sometimes I feel that people have to come right back into their environment, and 30 days is not enough of a coping skill, Bill.
No.
And they're thrown right back, and they're just not there yet. Yes, they're an outpatient, and yes, they still have the ongoing treatment, but getting thrown right back to your playground. Yeah. Is hard.
Even in the environment where we're not using Safe Passage, I think there's a lot of controversy around insurance companies only paying for 30 days of treatment when your brain's not even functioning correct at 30 days. There's a lot of research out there that supports that the model that's driven by insurance to only do a 28 days, 30 days, when we're really looking at 90 days to 6 months is what we're really looking at for realistic success. And, it's tough to watch people go to a 28-day or 30-day program and then not have the skills to be able to manage coming home, or they may not have an opportunity for a recovery house to go to. They may still need to have the intensive inpatient environment. So the fact that there's programs like Safe Passage that starts that process, that gives them that opportunity to start that, I'm excited about it. I've shared this information. I've even had involved in the planning stages and have had Safe Passage come out and talk about their program, which I'm grateful that you introduced me to Safe Passage, because I'm a big advocate for it. So that was definitely something I wanted to talk to you about today. Where are you at today with your career path? What are you hoping to see and succeed going forward with your clients?
Well, I hope funding stays. Mm-hmm. That is really big. That is huge right now, because I don't know if your viewers know, the federal government is taking a big chunk of mental health funding. In 2027, it's going to take a huge cut, and that's pretty scary for all of us mental health workers right now.
How does that impact it? Now, we can say that, but really, what are we looking at? How that impacts?
The funding for my position could be gone. That is how it can impact it. You
lose that co-responder. Mm-hmm. That person that may be the go-between the police department coming in, managing that call as strictly a criminal charge, and that person ending up in a prison sentence versus that person receiving mental health treatment.
Yep.
We live that.
Yep. That's significant. Your mental health agencies will lose a lot of the funding, which is personnel working. So it's really impactful. I know that agencies are working really hard to figure out how to work that funding. So I know it's not going unnoticed, but as somebody that relies on that funding for their income mm-hmm. and wants to stay in this field.
But the community loses that opportunity too. You know, it's not just a position that affects you personally, but the community. You know, you were talking about Lee Summit Police Department. Lee Summit is a huge community suburb for the Kansas City metropolitan area. That community loses an opportunity for that co-responder position to be the go-between their mental health community that needs those services. Those people end up being funneled into the prison system without having that person there.
Yeah, and there's co-responders in Belton, Independence, Blue Springs, Raytown, Grandview. So there's multiple of me.
Yeah.
and so it impacts more than just Lee Summit. It like impacts the metro. So that is huge. But no need to panic. People are working on it behind the scenes. That's what I'm being told.
Call all of your politicians and tell them that you want funding.
Yeah. We're not panicking yet, but it's there, and it needs to be noticed. Like, hey, the mental health field is going to take a hit, which is your whole push. Narcan's already taken a hit federally. So it's the same dollars.
Same dollars, yeah. Yeah. I have a not-for-profit, and we hand out a lot of Narcan. We do a lot of harm reduction, trying to get that Narcan into the community because it's sitting in warehouses. And if these agencies and not-for-profits aren't requesting it, it's just sitting there. The funding goes away, so does the access to it.
Yep, it's huge.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what your future looks like. Should the funding come through, what are you looking to do long term for your clients, but mostly your career path?
I plan to stay right where I'm at. This is my niche. I like helping people. I will stay frontline. I have been higher up, but I will stay frontline until my body says you cannot do it no more. I will stay frontline until I retire. I like being in the field. I like helping people. As I age, I will probably modify it a little bit, but I want to stay helping people as much as I can.
Why do you think that is, Jennifer? Why do you think that this is your niche, and why is this the impact that you want to make?
I think it's just a lot of where I come from. A lot of what I've come from, what I've overcome in my life. I mean, we've shared a very tiny layer of my life. But I've overcome a lot of adversity and trials and tribulations, and to watch people struggle. And if I can just be that one little Band-Aid to help get them over that little crisis, that seems huge to them, but in that moment is little on the outside looking in, and help them get on to bigger and better things. I want to be that Band-Aid. I want to be that bridge, that Band-Aid, whatever you want to call it. I want to be that to help them. So
I know that you're really good in the position you're in because you really helped support me through the years of dealing with Stephen. And we have, your family to me. We've gone through a lot with Stephen together, and I've watched you grow in the field and in your path and in your career. What do you think of all of the things that you went through as a child, the abuse, watching your mother struggle with mental health, the drug addiction that you dealt with her, and then you also watched Stephen go through years of being incarcerated, the relapse, and he kept trying to climb back, and you were right there and watched all of it with Stephen as well. What do you think impacted you that makes you who you are today? Of all of the environments you've been through, your ex-husband, all of the lived experience, what do you think impacted you the most?
I didn't give up on any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked my mom, but I didn't give up on her. And I didn't give up on Steven. I didn't give up on Tal. I'm not going to say all three of them didn't frustrate me, because they did. 100% frustrated me. But I didn't give up on them. Because you shouldn't give up on anyone. They may frustrate you. They may irritate you. But you shouldn't give up on them. You may have to put a little distance in them.
I call that recognizing them beyond their struggle.
Yeah.
They were somebody prior to their addiction. They're still somebody. They're just buried deep in it. Yeah, I like that.
You see through them. You could see through the struggle. I don't know. I always seen Steven specifically. I knew him as a little boy, and I seen him even in his worst, even when we would argue or whatever, I could still see him calling me Nenny. Mm-hmm. And even at his worst. And that's how I'd look at him. Whenever he would be at his worst, I would just look at him and see that little blonde-headed boy calling me Nenny and waking me up at whatever hour to ask me something ridiculous. That's what I would see. And that's how I didn't give up. And I had different for my mom and different for Tal. But for Steven specifically, that was him. That little blonde-headed boy calling me Nenny.
What would you tell a family member that's in crisis right now? The family member that's watching their loved one deteriorate with mental illness or drug addiction, knowing the years that you've had watching loved ones go through the same thing. What do you tell family members?
Find that one thing. That one thing, like I found with Steven, that one little thing. And they're going to get on your nerves. They're 100% going to get on your nerves. But that's okay. Just find that one little thing and remind yourself of that as you push through with them. They need you there.
So when parents have to make a tough decision and they have to call and ask for help, assistance, sometimes it's 911. Have you had to come across parents like that guilt-ridden, that they had to call?
Yeah. Because
you can't stop the system once you make that call.
Yeah.
How do you work with those parents?
With those, I obviously, when it's safe, I have my law enforcement step back. They have to keep an eye on me, but I have them step back. Hey, let's talk one-on-one. Let's figure it out. I kind of remove that. I also tell them about 988. If there is not a violent component, if they're just concerned about the mental health, and maybe they're, or the substance abuse, and they're not being violent, they're just being high, they're just being delusional, or they're just being tweakish behavior, but they're not being violent or hostile, and you just want to get somebody in there to get some resources to them, or you call 988. They'll come out there in pairs and talk with you, and they don't have to bring law enforcement. Mm-hmm. But if they have me there, I'm going to tell them anyway. I'm going to give them all that same information. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to say in the future, you can do it this way too without law enforcement. But I just give them all this information and encourage them.
So tell my audience what 988 is. Go ahead.
988 is the crisis line. It says suicide crisis line, but you do not have to be suicidal. You can just be in crisis. You can call for someone or call yourself. They are 24/7. There's warm line support. What I mean by warm line support is there is a live person on the other end of the line. They will talk to you for as long as you want. They will ask you if you want mobile responders to come out and talk with you. And if you say yes, they will dispatch mobile responders to come to your home and talk with you.
Very good explanation, because 988 is very effective. It has a ton of resources, and it can get you the help without having to have it as a police call. Mm-hmm. And that's, I wish we'd have known about 988 when Steven was younger, and we would probably have utilized that as an option versus law enforcement.
Well, it wasn't there. So.
It wasn't there. Right. Right. It wasn't there. Jennifer, I appreciate you sitting down and talking with me today. It's been a process getting you here. We've made many attempts to get you to sit down and talk with us, your busy schedule, but I'm glad you were here. Is there any way in the community, things that people can do in the community, like where you work at, if they have to reach out to law enforcement and they have to have that service called, is there anything particular when they call that will engage them to send you?
Well, we are not on 24/7, so you can ask for a CIT officer. A CIT officer is trained in crisis intervention, so they are trained officers. They come in with a little calmer approach. All officers have a touch of CIT training, but a CIT officer has gone through a little more extensive training, if you will. You can ask for a CIT officer. You can ask for a co-responder. It never hurts if you don't live if you don't know if your police department has a co-responder. Ask them. They may have it. They are nationwide, so it's not like it's just local here to Kansas City. It is nationwide. Ask if they have a co-responder. If they do, ask for one to respond with you, or just ask for a CIT officer.
Great advice. Okay, thank you so much for being here. I'm really glad that we got to sit down and talk. Your lived experience is going to make an impact on the people that you serve, and continue to get out there and be a part of that community and helping mental health and people who are struggling with addiction. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.